Good morning and welcome to today's session on R47, the Metering Code of Practice Consolidation Review. Just a few bits of housekeeping before we get going. If everybody could keep their videos and microphones off, just because otherwise we get some background noise, but there will be opportunities for you to raise your hand so you can ask a question verbally. The event today is being recorded, so you'll see that at the top of your screen. As mentioned, we have quite a big section for questions. We'll be using Slido for that, and I'm going to go on to the next slide in a second so you can see the QR code. If that doesn't work for you, we will, as mentioned, you can pop your hand up on Teams and ask your question verbally. So you should be able to see a QR code now. So if you have a smartphone, you can scan this and that will come up automatically. If not, you could just type in slido.com and pop that code in there and that will come up for you. Or if you have the Teams desktop app, you'll see an S at the top of your screen and you can just click that and ask questions. So I'm Amelia, apologies for not introducing myself, so I'll be helping facilitate and looking after the questions for you. We're joined today by my RECCo and RECCo manager colleagues who will provide an overview, and then we'll go on to a Q&A session as mentioned. I'm going to hand over to Anne to provide an overview of kind of what we're going to go through today. There you are, Anne.
Great, thanks, Millie. Hi everyone, my name's Anne Perry. I'm the Change Delivery Manager, part of the RECCo manager. So today's call, what we're going to be doing is providing a background to the Metering Codes of Practice Consolidation work that's been undertaken by RECCo, and Change Proposal R0047, that's taking the consolidation and implementing this into the REC. The main reason for this session, though, is the Q&A section. And this is really going to be the opportunity for you to ask any questions you have about the proposed changes. And really it's to support your review and response to the consultation on the change proposal that's currently open. So we're going to give a bit of a background. So we're going to introduce Rob in a second to give you an overview of the activity that they've undertaken. We'll give you the timeline of the change proposal and let you know where it is. But as I say, the main reason for this session is the Q&A. So as Millie said, if you do have any questions, please raise them through Slido, and we'll be aiming to go through all of those questions after we've given you that brief background. So Rob, if I hand over to you, and I think you're going to take us through the activity you've been leading on.
Indeed, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I think I'll just try something first of all, just on the reactions. Can I just have a show of hands if anybody has not attended any of the previous sessions, has not got really an idea of what the Code of Practice is, or anyone that's kind of coming into this a little bit green, if that makes sense? Is there anyone at all, or have you all? Okay, maybe one or two. Okay, so I think first of all, then a quick apologies to those that have maybe seen these slides before. I'm going to do a whistle-stop tour of what the consolidation metering code of practice is, how it's come about, how the approach was to do the consolidation, and really what the guiding principles were for bringing this into play, and how we've developed it further. So first and foremost, things that you're used to. So currently 4 codes of practice, or 3 codes of practice in the schedule that are currently audited, currently looked at within the industry. So from a gas point of view, we have MCOP. From electricity, we have MOCOP. We have the SMICOP that the energy suppliers are interested in as a one-off audit at the beginning of their smart journey. And then we have the ASCOP as well for the automated meter reader service providers. The plan for this is then trying to consolidate these 4 codes into one, to bring them together, to make auditing easier, to make the reading of the codes easier, and mainly to avoid the duplication that you'd find within the current codes you have, especially for those of you that are maybe a dual fuel MEM. It makes sense that actually you're being audited separately from an MCOP and a MOCOP point of view. So can we not do something to bring this together and have it just done once? So move on to the next one, please. Here we go. So the guiding principles of what we were trying to do, and apologies, it's a bit of a busy slide, but the guiding principles that we've really tried to stick to right the way through this is here. I'm going to go through them one by one and just give you a brief overview. The big one for me is there's no fundamental impacts. When we're consolidating this code, we're using the existing codes of practice and the wording of the existing codes of practice, and trying to only change those clauses that are duplicated or are fundamentally wrong and have had to change anyway. It's not an opportunity at this stage to make changes to any of the clauses or any of the business processes or anything, or extend anything that's going to make a difference to each and your own business. It's not there to cause a fundamental impact to your business processes day in, day out. It's not there to make you have to change any contractual obligations that you may have with third parties or other providers. It's there purely to do this consolidation work. So as it says there, no contract revision. We don't expect anyone to have to go out and do anything other than you may, and that is a big may, be speaking to somebody different when it comes to the audit side of things. There's no wholly new obligation is the follow on to that. So again, we haven't come up with anything that's in change proposal or going through the change process at this moment in time. Any in-flight change has come to us, and I've looked at that to say, well, does it change a business process? Is it going to cost any of the RECC parties additional money for implementing it at this stage? And any time that there's a possible yes for that, we've rejected that to say it won't be included into ComCop, into the Consolidated Code of Practice. That will then come later. It will go through the correct change proposal based on the baseline ComCop document. Simplification is a key one. Simplification from the fact of actually where you've all looked through your individual codes of practice. There's an amount of duplication even within your own codes of practice at the moment. If I look through MCOP on its own, then there's certain clauses that have been repeated 7 times. If I go through MOCOP, exactly the same. You could have the same clause repeated a number of times. When you combine the two, you've then got it 14 times. So actually, the whole point is the simplification of making sure that we remove the duplication that's there, and also to make sure that it's structured in a way that makes a bit more sense, that it's not dotted around here, there and everywhere. Whereas you can think, well, actually, I need to find out a bit of information about this subject. Whereabouts in the metering journey does it actually take place? And that's where this metering journey categorization comes in. And I'll go into the categorization that's been completed in a moment. And basically looking at the metering journey right the way through, from registering as a RECC party at the beginning, to making sure that you've got the right structure in place when it comes to your systems, to then being out on site, to then making sure that your data flows, etc., are being sent correctly after the event. So there's a journey categorization that's taken place to be able to do this. Once doing that, once that categorization happens, the duplication removal and merging and can happen. As I said, there's a number of duplicated clauses that within the codes of practice, and actually there's some very similar codes, some similar clauses as well within different sections. So especially again, if you're looking from an ASCOP point of view, there's a lot of duplication with MCOP, for example, both being the gas entity. So actually, there's a lot that we can do to merge some clauses and duplicate some clauses and get rid of a number of clauses that happened before. That being said, we need to maintain the genuine differences. If there is something that's slightly different, then we need to make sure that those differences are noted. We're certainly not going to say that actually as an electric MEM, you should adhere to all the codes that are there from a gas point of view, because that just doesn't make sense. So there is separation. And again, I'll go through that in a moment of how that is structured. All of these have gone through peer review. We've had a number of sessions so far from a peer review perspective, both within RECCo. We've also used the MEP as well to make sure the expert panel has been involved in this. And we've had third-party auditors as well, or third-party legal counsel to look at this and make sure that we've got the wording right and make sure that it doesn't affect each of yourselves as individuals. So specific association to a RECC party, and again, as I said, I'll go into that in a moment, but this then gives, actually, it will tell you the clauses that are applicable to you. Again, if you're an electric mem, it's not going to show you the gas clauses. Again, you're not going to show those ones that are previously in the SMICOP or the schedule proposal for smart metering, because it's not one that directly affected you. All of this will be in a digital format. Those of you that are au fait with EMA, it will continue to be used in EMA. However, when we're doing this, we will make sure we're going to keep referencing the original codes. One of the questions and one of the comments that's come up already is some of the referencing issues with EMA, especially when it comes to MCOP. There is a separate document that is going to be provided today to those of you that have been looking for MCOP and trying to reference it back to the original code. EMA unfortunately only does it by section for MCOP. I have now completed a document where you can have the individual clause that it associates back to, so that will be provided today. It needs to be in keeping with the terms of reference from the project, and that's where a number of the benefits have come out from. It will be looking for a single set of arrangements, so CONCOP will be a single document. We will then provide that single document to a single audit service provider. So those of you that do have multiple audits at the moment, we are looking to have a single audit service provider. We're going through that procurement process as we speak. And once we come out of that, we will know who that service provider is, and the contract will be done by the end of this year or beginning of January, ready for a starting point in March. The other part of this code of practice is it does allow for evolution, and we've also been putting that in from the service provider perspective as well. We need to think about the future. We need to think about things like hydrogen heating. We need to think about those of going out to do EV work. So it allows that evolution that we can start making those changes through the change process again on the baseline document, but it allows us to evolve, as that says. But what underpins all of this is we need to think about the consumer benefit, and that consumer benefit as a whole. It's not just the energy consumer that's off the back of this, but also looking at yourselves and your parties of seeing that benefit as well, making sure that you see that simplification coming through, make sure that you actually benefit when it comes to the auditing. It takes a lot less time. You have, in an ideal world, one audit where you are multiple parties, and it can all be done at the same time. That's the plan. Any questions so far? Anything burning from anyone, or should I carry on?
It doesn't look like we've got any questions raised. Okay. No hands up.
Fine, let's go into the CONCOP structure then. And again, many of you may have seen this, many of you may have started to see or review CONCOP through this change process. The CONCOP structure, the document itself, there are two documents available to yourself, so you can review whichever one you prefer. There's an Excel document that also references the clauses as they were known, or the clause numbers as they were known in the previous codes of practice. And there's also a Word document as well that doesn't have the previous clauses in it, but for some it may be easier to read than the Excel document. Within the code of practice, or the revised code of practice that we have, it will start as any good document does with the scope and responsibilities. Again, this is a merge of a number of pieces of the scope of the previous codes of practice. It will then move into the three main sections where all the clauses are, and this is the bit that it probably makes it a little bit easier to break down, and it's looking at things in pre-installation, installation and post-installation. And you'll notice that there is a couple of headers that sit underneath that sit across each of those. So something like industry notification sits across all three, and that is designed that way. So industry notification, you will inform people within the industry, both before you go out on site, you'll do it during you being on site, and you'll do it after you be on site. So actually it just gives that idea. So when you're looking through this and you're looking for a certain clause, just think about, when does that happen? Does it happen before, after, or during? And then you'll find which one of those industry notifications you will then go to. And that's the structure that's right the way through. It's looking at that journey, as I said, starting from registration. Have I got the system capability? Have I conformed regulatory? Have I got the right people on board to make sure that I can do the job? Have I got the right equipment? Everything up front to make sure I can operate. And then actually I can then do the design activity and have the conversation with the customer before I go on site. Once I'm on site, I need to get in the door first of all. So actually, have I done my risk assessments and have I got safe access? Can I get access? Has the customer given me access? Now I'm actually there. Have I got the right equipment? Have I got the right people to make sure? Am I the right person to do the job before I start doing anything? Then I'm actually doing the job itself. I'm having the conversations, the customer engagement, and then if you have gone through the SMART journey, we'll know there's a lot of customer engagement that takes place after that installation. And then informing the industry, and that could be from your commissioning work, it could be from sending your flows on site, it could be from having a conversation as an AMI and having to contact the MEM, or from a MEM having to contact the DNO. So any of those conversations that happen whilst you're on site. And then your post installation, when you go down to actually, again, have I got the system capability to send the data flows? Have I the duty of care to make sure things are actually been left safe, etc. The customer notification, so things that then lead into the audit that takes place there afterwards. So again, thinking about the SMICOP schedule or the SMART schedule. And then actually the industry notification, telling people that you've done the job, telling the energy supplier that you've done the job and this is the details, etc. And then going into actually that meter's been there for quite some time, or I may need to return a meter, and then into your ongoing maintenance and your life cycle of your device there afterwards. So hopefully you can see from that, it really shows and tells a story of this is the metering journey. So then when you're going through the document, there is a number of clauses in the document. However, hopefully it finds it's easier for you to find the bit that you're looking for. Thereafter is the appendix items. Again, like any good document, there is a number of appendix that have been brought across without change, but they've been brought across from the previous 4 codes of practice. Therefore, the document in itself is relatively large. That being said, if we can go to the next slide. Hopefully it's going to change in a moment. There we go. There is some breakdown. So first thing I'm going to take you to is just the tick boxes there. So, so point number 3, because it's going to be digital, because it'll be available in EMAR, what it gives you ability to do is select yourself as a party. So if you are an electricity MEM, you will select your electricity MEM, and it will automatically give you just the clauses that are applicable to yourself. All the ones that are there. So if you look at 213F, for example, is not applicable to an electricity MEM, so that one would disappear and you wouldn't have to worry about it. It gives you that ability. It also, if you look at point 1, it also can be categorized by fuel type and the work that they undertake as well. So you've got the gas there from a MEM and AMI and ASP perspective. You've got your SMART side of things in the middle there that were previously under SMICOP or the SMART schedule. And then from electricity, bit of an old screenshot, the MI side of things that have gone there. As you all know, there is no such thing as an MI in electricity at this time. However, that being said, it may be something that happens in the future, again, if we go through change control. So the electricity one in the updated document will just have MEM and DNO. Those of you that use MCOP will be used to the work categories and the type of work depending on industrial or domestic type work. So your C1s to C4s still are applicable and still have that within the work category. If there is a clause that is electricity only, obviously that work category side of things would be blank. There's no work category from an electricity side of things. So the other thing to mention is point number 5. It's not on this screen here, but to the left on the Excel document will be this referencing side of things. On top of what's wrote there, MCOP showing the section ID that's in EMAR, it will also have the clause ID itself. So 211 may become 411 from an MCOP point of view. So you'll be able to reference that as of today. Okay, that is a whistle-stop tour. I wonder if there's any questions so far, or do we want to hand over to yourself, Anne, just to go through the timeline first of all?
I'm just checking. It doesn't look like, Millie, I don't think we've got any questions yet, have we, to go through?
Not that I can see at the moment, no.
Okay, let's go through the timeline then. So we did think it was useful just to give an overview of the timeline and the activity that relate to the change proposal. So we are currently within the consultation window. This is closing on the 10th of October, so next week. But it's worth just calling out, I suppose, that prior to the consultation window where we are now, there have been a number of opportunities for engagement. Rob mentioned the activity that RECCo have been leading on and some events, including the webinars, party drop-in sessions, and then attendance at REC committees and REC forums. We then had the impact assessment period that was in August. And obviously with the consultation at the moment, which is open for everyone to respond to. Following the consultation, any responses that we'll get will be reviewed, and if there are any changes to any of the text or any of the information that we need to share, those will be made before we produce the final change report, which will be going to the change panel for decision in November. Following this, as sort of Rob mentioned, through kind of the rest of this year, the audit procurement activity will be going on, and then in early January we're expecting the auditor to be appointed, and that is really when the mobilisation activity then begins, which is sort of outside the scope of the CP, but obviously is relevant for everyone to know that that's what's going to happen. And then from a change proposal perspective, and obviously the new scheme, looking to have that launched on the 1st of April, along with obviously getting those audit scheme arrangements in place as well. And then if we could just move on, Millie, thanks.
Sorry, my mouse has decided to stop working. There we go, sorry. It should be coming up now.
So just a bit of a snapshot or a bit of a reminder. So these are all of the key change proposal milestones. And it's just to, I suppose, to reiterate, we are in the consultation window, and it's a consultation on the preliminary change report that's been published, and it's also on the solution that's been proposed, so the legal text, but it's also on the code manager's recommendation around when to implement and how to implement. So we are really wanting people to ideally to review the material that's been provided and to review the new ComCop. And respond back with any points, any comments, any questions through that consultation that we can consider before we publish that final change report. We wanted to make sure that everyone's having this opportunity, and the reason for this session today is it's again giving people that opportunity to, not just through those consultation, that formal response, but also making sure that from a party perspective you have the understanding that you need to of how this will work going forward, and also really what's changed from the current Code of Practice sort of separation that we've got and the way it's moving to that consolidated document and set of obligations. And then if we can just move on, for those who aren't necessarily familiar with how to actually respond to a consultation. So you do this via the REC portal. So from the REC homepage, left-hand side, there's a menu that you select Change and Release, which takes you to the Change landing page. You click on the consultations register within that landing page, and you're looking for that R47 consultation within that list of consultations that are open. And then if you go through, so this is how the consultation page itself looks. The accompanying documents are there to be downloaded and reviewed. Those have the change reports, which have the links and the supporting information around the Excel spreadsheets and the proposed consolidated Word document. So you would download from that change consultation page, and then there is a form on there to respond with the answers to the questions that we're asking as part of the consultation. And to upload that, you click on Add Response in that consultation page, where you can upload that response and then submit that through to us. So that's the questions that we, the information that we want to provide you. So I think we're on to the main part of the session now, which is the Q&A. So please have a think about the questions that you want to ask, anything that you want to know about the actual way that the consolidations happened, but also you know, anything to support with answering questions through that consultation. And I think so we've got the first ones on there. So the first question, I don't know, Millie, if you want to take us through, and then one of us will
okay,
answer these.
Yeah. All right, okay, so the first one on here is not sure distinguishing between relevant clauses. Works, e.g. emergency meter replacement work only, many AMI clauses not originally apply. How do I see these? I guess that's one for you, Rob.
Yeah, I'm just trying to work it out myself. So not sure distinguishing between relevant clauses where works, e.g. emergency meter replacement work only, many AMI clauses not originally apply. How do I see these? I've got to be honest, I'm not, maybe it's me, I'm not necessarily asking, getting the question of what we're trying to ask for. Certainly distinguishing between relevant clauses, you can't be specific and look to say, give me every clause that shows, as it says there, emergency meter replacement. It doesn't go down that. The clauses themselves will be filtered by party type. But I'm not, unless anyone can help with maybe clarifying that one.
Yeah, if you want to ask that question verbally, that might be to explain that.
Or a rewrite if you prefer.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not understanding. Apologies.
Okay, so should we just move on to the next one whilst that person can rewrite that one for us? So the next question is, will we have the opportunity to view the email document, including the ability to filter before sign off?
So from a change proposal perspective, no, because we've only got a week and EMAR isn't ready as of yet. We will certainly look to share some of the screenshots of what we're planning to do with EMAR. We haven't got the design as of yet. All we know is that they've got the document, and we're looking to see how we can best make sure it works as good as possible. We know that there's a few gremlins with EMAR at the moment when it comes to searching and etc. So we just want to work through those and get those done. But certainly, I plan to at least share with the forums that we normally go to from a MEP and an OMF perspective.
Okay, thank you. Let me just tick that one off. So I was confused by an update sent last week on new clauses that were now included. It made sense, but I couldn't understand the attachment.
Okay, I'm guessing this might be the extended clauses that we're talking about. I think it's probably easier if I just get it in front of me. Would probably make sense. So am I okay to share quickly?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you'll kick me off, so yeah, you carry on.
There we go. Hopefully you can see the document that we're talking about.
Yeah, that's up.
Yeah, okay. So the extended clauses, there was some comments that have been fed back to us regards to the extended clauses. We've said that we're not going to change anyone's business process or fundamentally change anyone's business processes, etc. However, there are clauses that you possibly didn't have to show evidence for before that you may have to now show evidence for. So the example that I've used many times is around data protections. These are the clauses here that you can see in front of you. So section 5.3, data and confidentiality. These ticks then have appeared. So originally the clause that you've got there at 531 was part of MCOP, part of ASCOP. So from a MOCOP point of view, you didn't necessarily have to do that clause. However, it's something that every single electricity mem should be doing or will be doing anyway. So being a signatory of a data protection regulation, you should all be adhering to data protection. So therefore, actually, it's something you already do. If the end game is to try and to consolidate your audits, and if you're a dual fuel, again, for example, and you're having a gas audit already, you're already showing this document from a gas perspective. What we're saying is actually showing this document now, you should be doing it from a gas and electricity perspective. You may have to update your document to say, you know, from a dual fuel capacity rather than gas capacity. But you're already doing it is the key thing. And that's the case for each and every single one of these clauses. It's something that you may not have had to show evidence for beforehand, but you're already doing it. So therefore, it's just making sure that that's the case, and making sure that you're aware that you may have to show an extra bit of evidence. Things around electricity at work regulations, etc. There's bits in there. There was a regulation in there, or a clause in there for from an MCOP point of view and a MOCOP point of view. They were slightly different, but meant pretty much exactly the same. So actually, it makes sense that that one there, that again, as a dual fuel, that you would be showing the evidence for both of them, but you're just showing the evidence on something that you already do. And that's the case for every single one of these extended clauses. Again, we'd appreciate the comments back if you don't feel that you do that already, or you shouldn't have to do something already. But for myself, when writing this, it was something that it's a normal business process. People are adhering to GDPR, people are doing data protection, people are adhering to electricity regulations already. Even as a gas operative, you still have to make sure that things are earthed correctly, etc. So it's things that you already do. Hopefully that's explanation enough. Again, please let me know if you need a bit more.
Okay.
Sorry, I was the one who just asked that question. Can I just ask again on that sheet? If I scroll down that sheet, it looked really, really long. And I was just worried that you've mentioned 2 bits there, but I was worried there was a lot more as I went down that attachment.
Yeah, there's a fair few clauses, but there is, I think there's probably about 15 bits, if that makes sense, as you go through. This is covering obviously the installation, the post installation, as well as the on-site activity. So I mean, there is a fair few on there, but it's evidence that you're likely to be doing already. And so where there is a clause that's been merged, and a number of these say within them, so there's a number of them that actually say there was a similar clause already within that original code of practice. We've deleted the original clause and extended a clause from MCOP, for example. It may have been that you were already doing it and showing evidence within a MOCOP perspective, but actually we've just used the clause written nicer in one of the codes of practice rather than the other. So they're not all things that you haven't done before. From an evidence point of view, there's a mixture of things that you've already done before and showed evidence for, and things that you already do as a normal business process.
Does that answer your question, Emma?
I think so. I think I'm going to need a large cup of tea and to go through this again, but I think I've got it now. And I think particularly if I look at that column P as I go through it, that will explain.
Absolutely. Column P is the justification. That's the exact thing. Where it's come from. So which code it was already in. Was it existing in a previous code of practice, and now it's been extended? It's still extended to that one, but under a different guise. And the reason for it. So again, if you look at this section here, so yes, there is what we've got there. There's 2 main clauses, but they've got some subsections. So you've got 7 clauses there. They've all been extended from the gas mem side of things. These were all MCOP clauses originally. So they now also apply from an ASP point of view, and that's because an ASP and a gas mem and gas AMI will all be removing, disposing of their equipment. So there's no difference whatsoever. It's just been extended to show that process so previously as an ASP, you may not have had to show your evidence of how you're doing your disposal. However, you are disposing of your equipment.
Okay, yeah, I'll have a good look through that. Thanks.
Thanks, Rob. I'm just going to reshare the slide. I've just seen in the chat as well about Slido. To kind of, if you missed it earlier, the QR code should still be on there, so you can still scan that, and that will bring up it on your phone. And again, you can just pop that code in on your web browser. So I'm hoping people will be able to log in. I'm just going to, we just answered. I've lost my mouse, which is always useful. I can't tick. sorry, this is, there we go, right. So why is there a new clause on the spreadsheet when the work is described as solely consolidation of existing codes?
Okay, so the new ones that are on there are not they're not new clauses. They are extensions of the previous clause, but they didn't have a reference in previous MoCOP side of things. So things that have come out, certainly in the scope, is where you'll find most of the new lines. And this is where it's come through legal review, and they've said actually you need to tweak that. So there's no direct correlation to the previous code of practice, so it shows as a new clause. Again, there's no new fundamental process that comes off the back of it. I'm just looking at an example now. So one of the examples that we've got is in the scope side of things. This CONCOP is aimed at anyone, including independent gas transporters, acting as an improved metering equipment manager, an approved meter installer, an AMR service provider, and energy suppliers. Now, the new thing that's been added is also a DNO. The DNOs were always included within the clauses from a MoCOP point of view, but all it's saying is actually they weren't previously mentioned in the scope. So that's where the new things come. So there's no new clauses. It's just something that has been brought from the legal text, and there's no direct correlation. So again, if you're trying to look up a DNO within the scope of any previous clauses, you won't find it.
Okay, thank you. Will we still have an opportunity to get clarity on certain clauses that are applicable to a MEM?
Hence why sessions like this are here. So anything you've got commentary on, it needs to go on that impact assessment side of things. We need to see where people are saying that actually they need clarity. If something's not explained well enough, then certainly. When it comes to audit, part of the requirement with the single service provider will to have those conversations in advance of anything that you need clarity on. Anywhere that you can say, right, what sort of evidence should be required here, those conversations should also be happening with the single service audit provider as well.
Thank you. So I think this question here for the rewrite was the one above. So most original code clauses did not apply to emergency replacement work only. How do we ensure that this distinction is maintained in CONCOP?
So as an entity, so as a party, you'll be looking at those. So I guess we're saying, there's not a section on its own for emergency replacement work? Yeah, it's a fair point. I think emergency replacement work and replacement work has all been put into as one. Again, on the commentary, if you want to reply to say that this needs to be highlighted for an emergency replacement, then maybe it's something that we can look at that way. There's not been any comments so far on emergency replacement distinction when we've gone through the previous reviews. So as I said, we've just kept it as replacement work rather than emergency replacement work. But I would need to see where the comments are that makes it different, or makes the process different, or the auditing different to what is there within the clauses. But unfortunately, there is not a section on its own for emergency replacement.
Okay, thank you. And then already doing and a new action to show evidence are quite different things, especially on the backdrop of auditing activities. I guess that's just a statement.
Yeah, I think it's right. I mean, you could already be doing a number of things, but again, there is a number of you that will be dual fuel. Therefore, there are a number of you that part of your documentation, it shows that you're doing something and you can evidence it with your documentation, but the other half doesn't. So when you have that combined audit and they say, show me evidence, then actually you're kind of only doing half the evidence at that point. So yeah, I completely agree. There will be some work that people will need to do to make sure their evidence is up to the new specification. There will also be work that we'll be doing with the service provider to make sure they're looking for the right thing as well, and making sure that the good work that's happened so far with the service provider is continued in the right way. but certainly people will still have to review their current documentations, their current matrices of how they apply to each of the codes of practice at the moment, and there will need to be some tweaking of the evidence that's been provided.
Thank you. Rec ID 2496 has no comment, justification and no clarity which industry standard processes for data it refers. Is this just a catch-call? How would this be audited?
I'm now going to need to go and find Rec ID 20.
Just whilst Rob's looking at that, Anne, are there any questions that have been, any hands up?
Yeah, no more questions in the chat,
Okay,
and
cool.
haven't got any hands up at the moment.
Okay, perfect. We'll just wait for Rob to do a quick search.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to make sure that 20496, we are talking about an ASCOP clause that's come out of that. So we're looking at 4.24. So I've got all signatories will comply with industry standard processes for data flows where required to do so. I'm hoping that's the bit that it is a catch-up, a catch-all side of things. It is a blanket statement that applies to everyone that should be dealing with data flows. There is further pieces within that section and within the rest of the ComClock that goes into more detail around flows and RGMA, etc. But that is a catch-all when it comes to site identification.
Thank you. DNAs haven't had a MoCOP audit for a while. When will they be due?
Aisha, I might bring you in on this one because from my understanding, DNOs don't necessarily go through audit.
Yeah, so under the REC, DNOs aren't required to have a MoCOP audit any longer. So yeah, the obligations will still apply to them, but they're not audited on them. And that was decided before the implementation of the REC.
Perfect, thank you, Aisha. As you can see, we've answered the questions. So if there are any more questions, please feel free to pop those onto Slido or happily, oh, here we are, spoke too soon. Once a new auditor is appointed, how will we be engaged so we can understand more about exactly how the audit activity will change?
So this is one of the tasks that is key for us from a new service provider, of how they deal with the communications, how they deal with the mobilisation period through and how they interact with people to make sure that people understand how things are going to change, how quickly things are going to change, when their next audit is going to be based on, is it going to be based on ComCop, is it going to be based on their previous code of practice? So that is one of the key parts. I would like to say how it's going to happen and when it's going to happen, but seeing we haven't got the service provider in place as of yet, we're going through that procurement process, but it is one of the key requirements to make sure that we have those conversations.
Perfect,
Yeah, and just to follow on from that, there will be a 3-month mobilisation period where the old service providers will be handing over to the new one. So within that time, we'll be making sure that there's the relevant documents available for parties, and also engagement events as well that's held, so we can walk parties through the new process.
Perfect, thanks both.
We've had a question in the chat.
Yep.
Obligation 14.4.4. We need clarity on this one. Do they mean that prior to commencing work on a said date, that the MEM/representative will do a quick inspection, for example, risk assessment? Or are they saying that we would need to do 2 visits to complete one job, because that would be very costly?
So for 14.4.4 is within the installation process. So this is whilst you're on site that you would be doing this this risk assessment in essence. So it's not the need for 2 site visits. So you would do an assessment in your design activity up front. It wouldn't be a site visit. You would be doing an assessment of the site and the equipment that you already know is there. But once you're on site, there would be an expectation for you to then do a risk assessment, etc., before you start any activity. But again, it comes down to the structure of the document and looking to see what section are we in. Is it something that happens before you go on site? Is it something that happens during site or something after site? Hopefully that makes sense.
And are there any other questions or any hands raised before we get to this question on Slido?
No, nothing else on the
Perfect.
chat board.
I think, sorry, just going to say that one of the key bits, it comes back to the guiding principles, but the actual clauses themselves, the majority haven't changed at all. I haven't rewritten anything unless it can be consolidated with another clause in some way, shape or form. The clauses themselves you'll normally find are exactly the same wording, other than some of them might say the signatories where they have been extended to more than one, rather than it may have said beforehand a MEM or an AMI or something along those, or an AMI or something along those lines. So when you're looking through the clauses, you should still have that one-to-one relation. That if you are paper-based and don't necessarily have all this in a lovely swanky database of how you show your evidence, you should still be able to still show that evidence in the same way. You just need to work out which clauses are associated to what. And on that note, I think there's a few more.
Do you want to just where there was one on Slido at the moment? So where can the extended clauses file be found?
I've just put a link in the chat. So it's hosted on the RECCo portal, so you will need to log in to access it, but that link will take you to the document and be able to download it. And it's the spreadsheet version that Rob showed on screen.
Perfect, thanks, Anne.
And we do have another question in the chat, which is 14.6.1. We do not hold the data for vulnerable customers. This is held by the supplier and it is reported/communicated to us. Where the customer lets us know, we're happy to inform the supplier, but the primary source of information is with the supplier.
Okay, so 14.6.1, that clause is carried over from MCOP, so no wording changes at all. So I suggest that you see what evidence you have already been doing from an MCOP perspective on that one. So I'm guessing you'd already be adhering to it.
And are there any other questions or hands up? Oh.
Nope, nothing else.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah. Another one for you, I'm afraid, Rob. Unclear on 21253 and 2067, stating in comments that already present for gas and electric MEMS and extended to both gas and elect MEMS to allow consistency is confusing.
Again, I need to quickly find those.
Yeah.
I guess we are talking about the extended document again. So we've got, let's look at the first one, 21253. So electricity at work regulations. So this is the one that we used as an example earlier. So there's a clause that is there in MOCOP already, and that has been extended to the gas side of things. And then there was a clause for MCOP that has been extended from to an electricity side of things as well. So it's just they've both got similar clauses, slightly different, but actually they will both be something that both gas and electricity parties do from an EWR perspective. So it's that consistency of saying actually both show the evidence that you currently do already, and that will make sure that both of those clauses are met from a 21253 point of view. So again, it's just this document is then to show this particular document is to show where it's been extended from one to more than one, just to show that we're not asking you to do anything different. From a 20670, that's the same one, sorry. So yeah, 2153 and 20670, they are relatively the same. They're still adhering to EWR, but because they're slightly different, but both an electricity and a gas MEM and a gas AMI should be doing this as a matter of course.
Thank you.
We do have a question in the chat. So 14.2.1 to 14.2.3. The engineers who act on our behalf do not necessarily know what supplier they're going to be representing at that time. The supplier books the job with us, we then book with one of the service partners, and the supplier lets the customer know that the work will be carried out on their premises.
Just look to see where we're looking. 14.2.1. Okay, so again, the clauses haven't changed to what you were doing beforehand. So as a MEM and an AMI, that the clause at 14.2.1 is exactly as it was found in MCOP. So whatever you're doing before is exactly the same. So we're directed by the MEM to undertake meter replacement work. The AMI shall assess the connected load and load profile to identify the size and type of meter installation. So yeah, I'm not quite sure it's any different from your comments there. You don't necessarily know who the supplier is. Okay, that's fine, but it's more around the type of meter.
And Nicholas, anything that you wanted to kind of add or ask?
No, that's fine, thank you. No, it's just clear. Yeah, obviously, I do understand. You know, obviously these are existing clauses. So as you've stated, I'll just look what we've done previously.
Yeah, and I think that's the key thing, and that is the key message for what you've been doing beforehand. There shouldn't be a huge amount of change for anybody. It's just going, actually, I might have had two documents beforehand. I can now probably put them together and show one piece of evidence to be able to do this with gas and electricity. And again, but if you do see things that you think, well, that's different to what our business process is. Yes, it may be a hangover from a previous code of practice. Then again, I encourage you to make Anne and teams work more difficult and give them more change proposals coming in. If there's something wrong that needs to be corrected through that change proposal.
Okay, no worries. Is there going to be, you know, once the session's finished, is there going to be further opportunity to reach out and ask certain questions or not?
There is, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, go on, Rob.
I was going to say we're more than happy trying to take on and do more sessions and or do more or be available for more questions. I think for the moment the key part is for you guys to do your review. If you have any questions, then put them on that official review. They are going to come to myself anyway, and I'll have that fantastic task of going through all the questions and answering all those questions anyway. And hopefully you'd get a written response to any questions that you do through this this review period. But if there is something that you go, actually, I really need to understand that before I can answer this session, then I'm more than happy to be contacted. That's same with, you know, touch wood, that there's not going to be the world and their wife trying to contact me every single day, because I need to probably write some of this, but I'm more than happy to be contacted with the odd question if there's something that is burning from anybody. But I would recommend put your questions down on your reviews for the moment.
Right, okay, great, thank you.
And are there any other questions from anybody?
Nothing in the chat, no hands up at the moment.
Okay. I'll just leave it a couple of minutes before if anybody has anything else.
I think just something else when you're doing people are doing their reviews, you may find clauses that don't quite fit in the section that they're in. Like anything, you do get the odd one that is a bit difficult to categorize. It could be put in a number of places. Again, put that on your feedback, put that on your commentary. It doesn't mean we're definitely going to change the location of it. There's a few of them that I've changed so far, but I've had comments from one party to say it needs to be in this section, comments from another party to say it should be in a completely different section. There's a few clauses that have moved a few times so far. We're trying to, again, tell that story, but it'd be really appreciated if, once you're doing a review, if you don't think it fits in that section and that story isn't being told in the correct way, then please comment on that, and we can see if it's best placed elsewhere. And again, if you see duplication within there, I'm still seeing things. I've reread this document a number of times. I'm still seeing clauses that I think, actually, I'm sure I've read that already. It's a bit difficult seeing the wood through the trees because of the number of clauses, but because you're specific in your party role, if you see something you say, well, would have already answered that in a different section, please note that down, and then we can look to try and simplify it a bit more.
Thanks, Rob. Any questions, Anne? Because I'm conscious of time, because obviously it's due to finish at 11. So
No, nothing else. So I think that might be
yeah.
it, I think, for today.
Yeah, perfect. All right. So yeah, we'll draw today's drop-in session to a close. Thank you. I think it's been had a lot of engagement. I think that's been quite positive. And I believe, sorry, I can't see, but Anne's popped a few things in the chat so you can find those clauses, and she's obviously showed you where you can leave those comments in the review. So yeah, thank you, Rob, Aisha, and Shelley. If you do have a spare moment, we would really appreciate it if you could, on Slido again, if you could just leave a bit of feedback. It's a really short survey about kind of how useful you found the session, and there's an open text box there as well. Even if you have any questions that we can relay to Rob or Anne, or if there's anything that you think we could have done better or we can improve for the future. So again, it's the same QR code, and it's just a quick question there. But I believe that's it. So yeah, thank you again. We have recorded this, so we will make this recording available towards the end of the week, so you can see the beginning and obviously the questions that were asked. But thank you, and we look forward to catching up with you soon.